Hello, a very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond Chizit. On Spectrum tonight, assessing the human rights situation in Uganda. Should corruption become a human rights matter? Proponents of democracy continue to argue that for a country to be considered among those making progress, emphasis should not only be put on economic indicators, but how the state handles human rights and freedoms. Uganda's human rights record has been a subject of many debates, but because of the determination by many to ensure that there is respect for human rights, this subject remains relevant because it cross-cuts many aspects, considering how the country is structured politically, socially, and economically. As such, the subject of human rights ceases to be only a political matter. The human rights situation in Uganda is connected to the political history of the country and during the times of repressive regimes. The situation was worse, but it has now generally improved during the NRM government. The NRM has been in power longest, and human rights observers and bodies insist that to whom much is given, much more is demanded. The Human Rights Commission, that's the Uganda Human Rights Commission, plus other local and international bodies, are involved in documenting the human rights situation in Uganda, and for a record 13th year, the reports of this commission still indicate increased abuses like torture by state agencies. Other questions have been raised on political freedoms and freedom of expression and that of the media. Now, as the bar continues to be raised high, there is now a demand that corruption be considered as a human rights issue. Many organizations are taking up the task to better as far as the human rights situation is concerned. Now, the Open Society Initiative for Eastern Africa is partnering with Street Law Uganda to make an assessment of the situation in this country as we continue to promote a progressive Uganda. We look at their assessment and also examine what it would mean if corruption became a human rights issue. Our guests tonight, Mr. Solomon WebaaleAraali, Executive Director, Street Law Uganda, also a human rights lawyer. You're most welcome, Mr. Araali.
Thank you, Edmond.
We're also joined by Honorable Bettie, Kamya, President of the Uganda Federal Alliance Party. You're most welcome, Honorable Bettie, Kamya.
Thank you, Edmond, and good evening, listeners.
Mr. Araali, why should corruption be considered a human rights issue?
Well, before you decide whether to treat it as a human rights issue or not, you've got to look at the effects of corruption. Now, money that should have gone to buy drugs for our hospitals is corruptly misallocated or corruptly given to friends, as was the case in the Basajabalaba case. 169 billion. That's a lot of money. And I think it could have supplied Mulago with drugs for an entire year. Here is a situation where you don't have oxygen in Mulago, and 169 billion shillings is being given to a friend. Now, what is the impact of this on human rights? It impacts on the right to health. Now, Uganda's children who would not die of simple diseases like malaria are dying of malaria because of corruption. Money which should be going to education institutions is corruptly being diverted. Now, this has an impact on the kind of education our children have. You know, children of the poor, as we talk today, actually don't have access to quality education because of corruption. You know, say instead of 3 or 4 layers of tarmac being laid on a road, only 2. So that means the
other 4 are eaten by an official.
The other 4 are eaten by
a man with a big stomach.
A man with a big stomach. And you know, that means you have poor quality roads. And that leads to increased accidents. So that's a violation to
human rights,
to life. You know, the police officers on the road, they allow all sorts of junk vehicles on the road because the owners can afford to corrupt the officers. So actually, misuse of public funds
Yes.
touches on all aspects of political, social, and economic life. So that, those rights in the area of social and economic rights,
Yes.
which the citizens would have enjoyed, they are now unable to access them simply because one or two people who belong to the ruling clique are busy siphoning off
Ruling clique.
the ruling clique. Yeah.
Strong words.
No, it's a clique really, because for me, I don't buy this
Honorable
idea.
Betty Kamya does not agree with you. She'll explain to us.
No, I don't buy this idea that, Westerners are eating. I am from the West, I'm not eating anything. I don't even buy the idea that the Banyankole are eating. I don't even buy the idea that the Baganda are eating. There is a clique from the West, which is at the center of the eating. I mean,
Which is you're using broad.
and I don't have to mention names. You just go on the streets and say who are in this clique. The people will tell you
Let's
their names.
try to stick to things we can quantify tonight. Honorable Betty Kamya, is corruption that serious in Uganda? And if so, do you think it's got to the level of being considered as a human right issue?
Corruption is very, very serious.
You think so?
Uganda.
Compared to other countries?
Yes, actually, according to the Corruption Perception Index, which was done by, I think, the Anti-Corruption Coalition, which is an international human rights, an international NGO, Uganda scored 2 on a scale of 1 to 10. And that and this information is available, readily available on the internet. Just go to Transparency Anti-Corruption Corruption Perception Index, and you will find Uganda ranked scoring 2 on a scale of 1 to 10, and that put Uganda firmly in the very corrupt countries.
The lower the mark, the higher the corruption level.
Exactly.
So we got 20% in terms of
in grading,
right,
with the least corrupt getting 100%.
The Norways and Scandinavia.
The Norways, exactly. But for me, while I agree with Mr. WebaaleAraali very much, and indeed all Ugandans that are just mind-boggled, I think, with the volume of corruption in Uganda, I would like to take it to a slightly different level. Because I think that, in fact I don't think, I know that corruption is a consequence of bad governance. It is not the cause. It is a consequence. Human rights abuse, beating up people, is a consequence. Electoral malpractices, graft, all those things are consequences. But I worry that we spend so much energy, resource, and time dealing with the consequences when we should be dealing with the root cause. If we don't go to the root cause, that's why we have spent 50 years fighting consequences, because we never get to the root cause. And I'll explain myself. It's like you have, say, malaria, fever, and then with malaria you get vomiting, you get diarrhea, you get a headache, you get mouth sores around the lips, and you start dealing with those opportunistic or consequences of malaria.
Symptoms.
Not even symptoms, consequences, or symptoms if you like.
Right.
You know, they are dangerous and can kill. Vomiting can kill. It's dangerous.
It can dehydrate.
It can dehydrate you, and the cause of being dehydrated, you die. But vomiting is not really the cause of your problems until you get to the cause of what causes malaria. Because even if you treat malaria, but you do not treat the pond near the house that breeds mosquitoes,
they'll keep coming and biting you in the night.
Coming. This patient may die of malaria, but another one will get down with malaria, and that one may die or get cured or even migrate. But as long as you're living in this vicinity, you'll be a victim of malaria.
So what is the, how do we get the cause?
Is to go to the pond.
Take us to the pond. We want to eliminate corruption.
I want to take you to the pond.
Take us to the pond and let's get corruption out of this place.
We have corruption here, which is and human rights abuse, beating up people, and electoral malpractice, and all those things that we do. Their cause is bad governance, or if you like, dictatorship. But the root cause of dictatorship is a constitution that heaps all the power of this land in one office, gives it to one person. I will tell you the beginning of dictatorship. Dictatorship is created, the key ingredient of dictatorship is too much power. Yes. That is the key ingredient of dictatorship.
So what
are the powers of the president? The president of Uganda is the head of state, commander-in-chief of all the armed forces, head of state. He appoints the vice president, the prime minister, judges, chief justice, ministers, RDCs, cows,
even presidential advisors. But these days some of them don't get vehicles, so I don't know what they're going to do.
But he appoints them. Listen, he appoints all the commissioners of the Judicial Service Commission, Health Service Commission, Education Service Commission, Human Rights Commission. He appoints all heads of statutory bodies, the Electoral Commission, Governor of Bank of Uganda, Commissioner General of URA, Uganda Wildlife Authority, Uganda Investment Authority, Uganda Coffee Development Authority.
Right.
The
president,
big
man.
And those functions are given to the president by the Constitution.
But let's cut it to the chase. Nigeria has a federal system of government, but it's a very corrupt country.
You need to understand. You need to study the Nigerian system first. You know?
No, it's a federal system. They have states,
but federal system, there are many brands. There are very many brands of federalism. Because you can...
But the principal ingredient is devolution. They devolve powers to the governors and they steal money from the local regions.
Yeah, but then how much? It depends. But how does that affect? And how are they working with the people? Because here, for instance, in Nigeria, when President Goodman, when people rioted...
Goodluck Jonathan. When people rioted
for I think it was rice, the cost of something.
Yes.
I think it was fuel, about 2 years ago. The president listened to the people and put down the cost. So how do you respond? But in an absolute dictatorship, you beat up people. And do you know why you beat up people? I mean, we've got to look at our constitution. The president appoints the IGP, okay?
Inspector General of Police.
But in Kenya, they had just advertised the job of the Inspector General of Police last month.
Okay.
And they received 90 applications from all sorts of people.
Okay.
So in Kenya, all these jobs that I've mentioned, except for the ministers, because they're part of the presidency, you know, the president does not appoint the chairman of the Electoral Commission, the Bank of Uganda governor, the chief justice, the judge. He does not. So the powers of the president have been carved. So in Uganda, when you don't carve that power, it
spirals into corruption.
Exactly.
Listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio and tonight, assessing the human rights situation in Uganda. Should corruption become a human rights matter? Our guests, Mr. Solomon WebaaleAraali, Executive Director, Street Law Uganda, also a human rights lawyer, and Honorable Bettie, President of the Uganda Federal Alliance, also a veteran politician. You will be able to contribute to this discussion. Mr. Araali, how would characterizing or categorizing corruption as a human rights matter help? How would it change?
Probably before I answer that question, Edmond, I'd like to add on what Ms. Kamya has been saying, that, you know, all this corruption, all these are consequences really of bad governance. And for me, this bad government, what is the root of this bad governance? It is from militarism.
What do you mean?
From, you see, Uganda as a state was established by the British using military might. So you can say that actually,
can you establish a state otherwise? Give us some historical examples. Maybe the US was established by.
I mean, you have got nations which have risen as nation states, merely on by shall I call it by biological I mean, I'm looking at where you have a nation and a state.
Without war?
Say,
Give us some examples. We might not have seen
I mean,
the US has had wars. China has had wars.
Wars has had wars, but then you reach a level, then you surrender.
Australia, they had their
yes, but then you reach a level where you surrender what you have conquered militarily to the people and say, all right, now governance goes into the hands of the people. Yeah. But that is not what has ever happened here. So colonialism stayed here by military might until the international situation was such that they had to cede power. And the post-colonial government, the first post-colonial government, Obote had to use the military to establish his authority. Obote himself was removed by the gun. And what happens when Amin goes?
Every change of government we've had in Uganda has been by the gun.
When Amin goes, the colonial.
Yes,
including the colonial.
Yeah, we never had to fight too much for our independence.
No, just Edmund. When
first out.
Actually, when Obote is fighting with Semogerere in the 1980 elections.
Yes, Obote is generals.
Yes, where are you? Generals. And he ridiculed Museveni that Museveni pretended to be a fighter, he had not fought. What did Museveni do? He said, all right, now I am going to show you my commanders. He went to Luwero and other places, created his commanders, and came and removed him. And from that time, Museveni talks of my army. In fact, if you want, to touch a sensitive part of the president, you talk of the army. Now, this army has been used in elections.
His son works in that army incident.
The army is being used to rig elections. The army is being used to do police work.
Well, but you can't really quantify some of these things, Mr. Araali.
What do you? I mean, we see them every day. We see them every day with our naked eyes. It's not a question of saying, quantifying them scientifically. The other day, Kizza Besigye was picked from the airport by the military. The other day, he wanted to travel. The other day,
all right.
People in Kayunga, they were beaten up and killed by the military simply because the military didn't want the Kabaka to visit some problem.
Let's look at, we have a military past and we have a, we can't really overqualify that. But are we still at a point where the military was badly abused, for instance, in state-inspired terror? Don't you think we've crossed that bridge now?
No, we haven't, and that was the point I was making.
Well, let's look at the past regime.
If you give birth to a daughter, okay?
Yes.
And 13 years later, she asks you to buy a bra.
Yes.
And then you get surprised. If you give birth to a girl, 13 years later,
she asks for a bra.
She will need money for a bra.
Yes.
So all this should have been predictable. We gave birth in 1995 to a constitution.
Let's try to get some context here. Let's look at the military. Let's emphasize the military as a bad thing. Has the army, not absorbed absorbed itself of blame compared to other?
No, it cannot, because that's what I was telling you, Edmund. The army is loyal to the president, okay, the commander-in-chief. The police is loyal to the appointing authority of its leaders. The Human Rights Commission is loyal to the appointing authority. The Electoral Commission is loyal to the appointing authority. The Ministry of Finance is loyal to the appointing authority. I mean, how can you stop his liberties? Taking liberties.
But we still have state-led terror. Do we have torture by state agencies at a massive scale?
As long as they challenge the authority.
Nile mansions.
When they challenge the authority of this president or any president, then you're provoking him or her to fight back. Because the Constitution gives the president, any president, incredible ammunition to fight back and to hold on to power. So the outcome of fighting back and holding on to power is what you call human rights abuse, is what you call corruption, is what you call all those things. So really that's why I was telling you from the beginning, that we gave birth to dictatorship.
Yes.
Okay? We gave birth to dictatorship. Now, we gave birth to dictatorship. Now, when a dictator is born and does what dictators do, we are crying foul.
What do you mean by dictatorship? We have an elected government. It's been elected many times.
Yeah, but you know, when you
Ms. Araali, talk to us about your own perspective. I know you've used very strong words against the government, but do we still have state-led terror in this country?
To answer that question, Edmund, I don't have to speculate or to think. You just read the reports of the Uganda Human Rights Commission.
What do they say?
I mean, they talk of state torture led by the police.
At what scale? On what scale? Let's benchmark it against the old regimes.
You see, Edmund, I have a problem with that question of looking at the human rights.
You don't like my benchmark?
From the aspect of what happened in the past. Eh? You see, what happens now is the police, the army get somebody, take him in the barracks, they beat him, and then when it comes up to say you are lucky. You see, in Idi Amin's time you could have been killed. You see,
is that true or false?
But in any case, I mean,
you see, you're not supposed to be even pitched.
This is Spectrum Radio, and we'll go for a break. We'll be back to the station.
Ça va, hello. My name is Kogole Andona, very serious Congolese tailor. People see me when they want to look good. People leave my shop looking like superstars of TV. But however much I make you look beautiful or even sexy like me, I cannot change the person inside, the real you. Kind of like Uganda Waraji. It has this beautiful look, but inside they have maintained the same old spirit that we know. The same old spirit we have known for many years in a new suit. New look. Oh, you need to try it.
Enjoy the new look Uganda Waraji. The same Ugandan spirit with a new look. Uganda Waraji. Same spirit, new look. Excessive consumption of alcohol is harmful to your health. Not for sale to persons under 18 years. Please drink responsibly.
Excuse me, guys. Let me through, please.
Yes.
Check this guy. Goodness, dude, what are you doing? Get real.
Just move
What?
a little bit. Man, what are you doing bringing a cow into the sitting room? It's just for when I want milk.
Just what?
Just please move. Let it come and sit here.
What's wrong with this guy? You cannot keep a cow in your home, but you can get the freshness of its milk straight from the farm into your home. Get fresh dairy milk for freshness straight from the farm every day. Fresh Diary, so fresh.
It's the time again to sweat a little for better. It's that moment to unite again and open our hearts to charity. Run for life, run for water, run with your heart, run with your heart, run for life. Register and run the MTN Kampala Marathon on the 25th of November and help take clean water to Bududa. Run with your heart.
MTN, everywhere you go. Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum tonight, assessing the human rights situation in Uganda. Should corruption become a human rights matter? Our guests, Mr. Solomon WebaaleAraali, Executive Director, Street Law Uganda, also a human rights lawyer. Honorable Bettie Kamya, President of the Uganda Federal Alliance. You will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. Mr. Araali, can corruption be eliminated? Very briefly.
If you eliminate the factors responsible for that one, and that is bad leadership.
Yes.
The system of governance, actually. I mean, as long as we have leadership that is not accountable to the population, then corruption is not going to go away. It's not going to be wished away.
How do you bring accountability? Talk to us about how you bring accountability, and especially how your company, your organization does it. Street law, it's a unique name. How do you do it?
It's a question really of it's a situation which requires a holistic approach.
How are you doing it as a
holistic approach? I mean, street law does its small contribution. The political parties do their contribution. Other civil societies, you know, do their contribution. So that the idea is, in the long run, to create people's power.
What is people's power? Explain to us that concept. Some people
people's power. All right. You see, in 2002, Moi did not want to go in neighboring Kenya. But civil society, other political organizations, having seen, you know, the dangers KANU had caused to the country,
yes,
they mobilized the population to such an extent that however much KANU wanted to cheat, to rig the votes, they could not do so. They were overwhelmed.
Let's cross the
border.
So
the same thing here.
Let's cross the border. Let's
so
come to
what we need is civil society organizations, political parties. We've got to go to the roots and talk to the people.
How do they do it? Today they were in Lugogo. They were told you can't do it. They had placards.
You see,
they said they were money. We don't even know what they were money.
You see, it's not a question, you know, where we're going to see achievements in one day, Edmond. It's a protracted struggle. This time not using guns, but using civil means. Placards.
Honorable Kamya, we have placards that made change at all. Fundamental changes. You know, the last fundamental change we had came at the barrel of a gun. You expect to get fundamental change with a placard?
I think that there are constitutional means through, you know, you've got to push, like Araali here says, you've got to keep pushing against the wall, inch by inch, painfully.
Like the proverbial camel?
Whatever it may be, painfully. But we need to change, we have to change the system. Let me tell you, this constitution, which I find terrible, the constitution of Uganda, somebody...
A unitary constitution.
This unitary constitution. So, and it's even worse than many unitary constitutions, because there are many unitary constitutions which are not as bad as the Uganda constitution, which heaps all the power in the hands of one person, you know. But I mean, not all unitary constitutions are, you know, as absolute as the Uganda constitution.
Yes.
But for us to get this constitution, it was not really by the barrel of the gun. It was by smart manipulation.
Well, the people who fought gave it to us.
But in a smart way. I think it was smart because remember the Odoki Commission? That's where it started. I mean, we didn't protest. They established the Odoki Commission. I think it was established by that time. It was called what? NRC. It was almost like an act of parliament. Odoki went around the country. People participated in giving him their views. Odoki published a report, which we call the Odoki Report. But that Odoki Report was really the draft constitution,
which was debated by the CA.
Which was debated by the CA, which
94,
comprised of people who had been elected from outside. So there was a lot of, you know, somebody was driving something, but smartly enough for people to think that they are part of it, that they're making. In the CA, they debated the constitution and they passed it without, so except for the people who walked out because of federalism.
Yes.
I think there were 57 people out of about 160.
That
you know,
passed.
but basically the constitution was passed, and the people of Uganda have been operating and quoting the constitution, and even priding ourselves. I've had some legislators in parliament saying we have one of the best constitutions.
Yeah.
But
and you don't agree with them?
I don't. They I keep saying we have one of the best constitutions in Uganda. It's just that it's not being implemented. But I'm saying no, we have a very, very bad constitution. In fact, a constitution that was designed to serve dictatorship, you know. So that's where the story really begins. So if somebody was smart to manipulate us, not really by the barrel of the gun, it is time for us to undo those things. Also smartly, using the same process, calling his bluff, using the constitution, you know, push step by step. You know, I think that we can do it.
Mr. Ren, let's talk about some other political freedoms. How do we get that space freed, widened?
I don't know which political freedoms you're talking about, Edmond, because in present Uganda today, I mean, you can't talk of freedom of the press. Journalists are being beaten, their cameras, you know, smashed every other day. I mean, people cannot be allowed to assemble freely. I mean, people cannot be allowed to move freely. So I don't know which civil liberties, you know, you are talking about. I mean, what narrow as it may be, but even those small bits which were given by the 1995 Constitution, you know, they are being daily taken away by the oppressive police.
Explain to us how's that
I mean, the other day, you know, a trial was going on in court. The police and the military, they invaded the court. The people had been granted bail, you know, they were arrested. Advocates were beaten up. So you cannot even talk of a free judiciary, which is essential in a free state. You know,
you don't think the judiciary is free?
It is not. It's not. I mean, the economic situation got out of control the other day.
Yes.
Simply because of poor management of our economy.
So you think
people decided to express their dissatisfaction so that the government may act on policy, but instead the government decided to whip them. And
to maintain law.
Well, they almost murdered, actually, you know, the leader of the opposition outside parliament. I mean, he survived narrowly. So, when you talk of civil liberties, which are there? I mean, the other day, this guy, Sarumaga, a journalist, he was in some radio, you know, just as we are here, as he was getting out. The guy was beaten up, he was tortured. It is by God's grace that Sarumaga didn't die. So, when you talk of, well, the situation may not be as bad as it was
during Amin's time.
Amin's time, but that does not mean it is good.
Is it an overwhelming trend?
Yeah, it is.
Well, we don't have safe houses. They've been closed.
Well, officially that's what they say. Yeah. And you don't expect the state to broadcast that they are safe houses. But quite a number of occasions, I meet people who have been tortured in those safe houses.
Can they pinpoint them?
Well, sometimes they are taken there, beaten at night,
and taken back home.
And taken back home.
By time for the prime news.
I think that we need to be sort of, if you'll allow me, broader minded.
Yes.
And accept that situations, governments will respond to situations during a given time.
Yes.
For instance, the UK, I think last year, government was proposing to extend, was it the US? I think both the US and the UK. The government was proposing to extend the 72 hours of interrogating terrorists, suspects, you know. Hours is 48, but in the UK it is 72 hours. You must bring somebody 3 days. You must bring somebody to court. You must finish your investigations and take somebody to court within 72 hours. But the government was proposing to bring a bill to increase, because they're saying 72 hours is not enough time to carry out an investigation. So they were responding because now there's this this war against this war of terror. So the Times are saying it is what we are dealing not with the petty criminals, but with the possible terrorists who are smart, who cover their tracks, who do ABCD. And when you look at the USA, of course, we all know about Guantanamo Bay, and even the USA,
which Obama failed to close.
Which Obama failed to close after promising that he will close Guantanamo Bay. And then there is, of course, Bush and his, I think, there's this law which we passed, which was calling for to support, and which Uganda supported, that an American cannot be accused of human rights abuse during a wartime, you know? It was something like that. American soldiers, wherever they may be, as long as
be tried for human rights violations
be tried
during a war situation. All American soldiers.
All American soldiers.
And Uganda supported that.
Yes.
So they are different. Don't compare the countries too much, because they also respond to different times, different challenges at different times.
Okay.
But what I would like to say in the case of Uganda is that human rights abuse and corruption will continue as long as you've got a situation where the head of state is empowered by the Constitution to hold on to power.
Yes.
And the main point, because most people want to hold on to power, whether it is the British Prime Minister, the American President, the chairman of LC1, the bishop, the parent, people will normally try to hold on to power, and they will use everything they have. The only difference that the Ugandan president has is that he has so much ammunition given to him by the Constitution to hold on to power.
Mr. Araali,
and that's what spirals into all these things that we are crying about.
Mr. Araali, is the government abusing human rights when it fails to grow the economy, when its policies don't work? The economy doesn't grow fast enough. 3.2%, 5.4%. Is that abuse of human rights?
It's a violation of human rights in the sense that, you see, when there are no drugs in the hospitals, the right to health is violated. The right to education is enshrined in the Constitution.
Yes.
So when funds that should have gone to promote education, to build schools, to pay the teachers, when they diverted, it has an impact on the quality of education. Now, and sometimes, you know, the state actually has been unleashing corruption on the public in a subtle manner.
How do they do it?
Before the 2011 elections,
yes,
the government of Uganda...
That was only last year, not too long.
Only last year. The government of Uganda decided to pay all LOC1 officials in the country a salary. I don't know.
You think that contributed to inflation?
No. That aside,
they were not to give them bicycles. They got the wrong supply. They failed to give them bicycles. Go on.
But you see, now, if that was policy, it would have continued. It would have been debated in Parliament. But now that the elections ended, those salaries have also ended. And I will not be surprised if in 2016
the promises come back again.
Now, this is the government that is supposed to manage with a lot of care our resources for the welfare, for the benefit.
And you're not happy with what they're doing?
It's not on me. All the people of Uganda are not happy.
Well, okay, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. You can call in now. Our number is 041-4348-11031-260-390-0312-261-390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you're calling from. All right. Mr. Araali, there was a demonstration today which was, I think, blocked by police. It's supposed to take place at the trade ground. Spectrum, hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir, your name?
Good evening.
Good evening to you.
My name is Bettie. I want to please the president of Federal Alliance and the business of the president started very well when we should tackle the root cause of corruption. And although in the middle, in this conflict, she was again in the other.
Mr. Aware. Spectrum, hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir, your name? Good evening to you. Your name?
My name is Joseph.
Yes, Joseph.
I'm always glad to listen to this number of hours. The Bettie is a bill that sees the people who go and make sure that the government is total. We said that we know what every second is. Now, we withdraw from the gentleman from the studio. He's talking about the money that was only given to the LCC, about the 50,000 to each village. And he's talking about the shelter block, not only the friends that someone given the rules or anything like maybe some drugs in the hospital like that. Thank you very much.
All right. Spectrum, hello?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Your name?
This is Kasher.
Mr. Kasha, yes?
If you get wrong, I have been around for some time. Today I was watching the civil society demonstrating against corruption.
Your radio is giving us feedback. Would you switch it off?
Yes. Have you ever known how many NGOs are in Uganda?
John, we have thousands.
If actually, because Dr. Kamya maybe can answer that, and maybe any civil society activist, what is the role of these civil society organizations and NGOs? Last time, let me give you a scenario, and will not waste your time. When we had a war in northern Uganda, after I was there, I made a research because I'm a social researcher. One district had 1,605 NGO and all big humanitarian work. And people were wishing, dying of hunger in IDP camps. Early in the morning at 10 a.m., the coordinator of the NGO is swimming in one of big hotels. Look what the country is going around. Now, who are feeling with this country? Anymore. People must be realistic. Corruption is a serious issue, even in civil society. We need to change our mindset, start afresh and repent.
Swimming at 10 o'clock in the morning in good. Let's get back to this. Okay, Spectrum, hello?
Good evening.
Good evening, your name?
Contribution is that I think that the connection between corruption and human rights abuses is that for corruption to grow, it has to happen only with human rights abuses underlying it. When you look at the current events that are happening, don't think that everybody who is in the ministry or who is in the sector is doing that. Because for that corruption and that type of thing to happen, there should be extreme separation from above. Either you threaten with a job, threaten with a career, or threaten with all sorts of harassment. So, what does it mean? What we would grab out of the years is that the longer the meeting goes, the longer people stay in power, the more they entrench themselves in power. The level of corruption that underneath must be a level of human rights abuses. Thank you.
All right, let's get back to the studio. We had another comment that came in from via the Facebook page by Mr. Morrison Rakakamba. He says, corruption denies the rights of people to access fruits of citizenship, like service delivery and other opportunities in life. However, this corruption should be fought fairly, justly, and factually. We must avoid blackmail and partisan contestations. Mr. Araali.
I thought those are issues we have already addressed, Edmond.
Yes.
I am in complete agreement with the gentleman that corruption has a serious impact, has a serious negative impact on service delivery, because the funds that would have gone in service delivery, the service that would have gone into providing ordinary people with clean water, rural electrification, good roads. I mean, these monies are embezzled by state officials, not only politicians, but even...
But there's a complaint that even civil society say, how can a man go to swim in a hotel in Gulu at 10 o'clock in the morning? That's corruption. And he works for an NGO with a big...
No, that is true. Edmond, I mean, we have good and bad journalists in this country. We have good and bad doctors. Even in my own profession, The advocates, you see, who double deal. But are we going to say, because 1 or 2 or 5 advocates the other day double crossed their clients, are we going to abolish the legal profession? If you do that, what are you going to replace with? So something with the civil society here. I mean, indeed, there's some civil society organizations that have got money from donors and have not put it to their proper use. But I mean, that cannot be a blanket that cannot be used as to
demonize the entire sector.
To demonize the entire sector. Yeah, I agree. And actually, I meet many people in the street who say, no, but you guys in civil society, you are corrupt as
the other people.
So it is left. And you've got to remember that, members of civil society actually are a product of
the society.
So
just like the politicians.
Just like the politicians.
Because it has been said before.
So the whole thing is
that they deserve.
So the whole thing is that there is the need for a holistic approach. All Ugandans out there of good conscience, we must of good conscience.
All right.
But I think that James, who questioned the role of civil society, made a very interesting comment.
Yes.
But first, my friend Were, he says the root cause of corruption,
lack of ideology. Whether you have a vision or not.
Lack of ideology. And he was talking about capitalism and but for instance, I have an ideology. UFA. And I presented myself for president with a clear ideology.
Sorry to intervene. The present government has got a military ideology.
Is that so?
Yeah, I think so. So I don't know whether he means who is the problem? Him who didn't understand my ideology and vote for me, or me who has an ideology?
We don't know.
No. I know him very well, my friend. He votes the bus. But he might have been disillusioned these days. So I really don't know about ideology, because corruption is a function. Is a function that is ideology is a
all right. If political freedoms are curtailed, is that an abuse of human rights? Or for the sake of the many, you curtail the freedoms of a few so the others can enjoy the human rights?
Sorry, I didn't get you, Edmund. If
political freedoms, you curtail the bad freedoms of a few people so that the others can enjoy the human rights. Like people walking out and kicking tomatoes on the streets.
No, I think what we need to understand really is that everybody should have their space.
To kick tomatoes on the streets?
No, within the law, within the parameters, everybody should have their space. People who are, for instance, you're talking about people who are demonstrating. Me and Anna Mojisha, we organized a demonstration in New York. President Museveni had been invited to be awarded the AIDS award sometime during the Bush days, I think, the early Bush days. And
George Bush days, not the Bush award.
Yeah, the George Bush Junior. Yeah, the junior days. So we organized a demonstration, I think it was in Chicago, against President Museveni receiving that award. But the laws of the USA are you go and inform police, and police will give you protection,
like they do it,
and also police will also protect the other person. So we had a man on a horse, and there's just very few people. He says you don't cross this line, because even those people in the other rights who are listening to Museveni also have their rights, and you have your rights. So you stop here. So the guidelines were clear. Each one was given their space. But the problem here, I think we are promoting some kind of lawlessness by thinking that there are no laws in this country, and that all the laws should not be respected. Therefore, you can go and what you call Edmund, kick people's tomatoes in pursuit of your rights. I think we need to get that in order, because we should not keep thinking like the opposition, as if you will always be opposition.
Tomorrow
you must remember that tomorrow you'll be in government, and you also have to implement or to make sure that laws are adhered to. That one has to be said. But each one should have their rights. But if the laws are good and just, and if people trust the laws,
Right.
then everybody will have their space. There will be no one giving up their space for the other ones in the name of human rights.
In a minute, one thing that's quantifiable, if corruption become a human rights issue, how would that help us in one sentence?
No, it is already a human rights issue. I don't know what you mean. It's already a human rights issue. But finally, this selective application of the law has got to come to an end. Because if my sister Bettie here now wanted to address a rally tomorrow, she must get a police permit. She must, Now, on the other hand, if an NRM chap wants to address a rally, I mean, he gets all the freedom.
Okay. Well,
those are things which have got to come to an end.
Track record is NRM people. Thank you very much, the President of Uganda Federal Alliance, Mr. Solomon WebaaleAraali, Executive Director, Street Law Uganda, also human rights lawyer. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond Chizito Spectrum. We'll be back tomorrow.
Thank you.
It's the time again.